All right then. Hello and good afternoon, or just hello wherever you are in the world. My name is Titi Oyinsan, and it's time for the On Air Book Club. It's been a while. It's been a minute that we've done this. But for those that know me, they know I love to read and read and read and then proceed to read some more. It's one of those pet passions of mine that has just grown year after year. And today we have another amazing author in the building with us. Now, the On Air Book Club podcast is easy. If you would like to join us, just send us an email. That's dynamitepodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Dynamitepodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Send in maybe the name of your book and maybe the bio or profile of the author, and let's see how we can review it. We'll be getting back to you really soon. Today is a special day. We have a really great author in the building, and joining us, we are going to explore a captivating story. We have Kehinde Fadipe here with us today. Now, she is a Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts trained actress and teacher with an impressive stage and screen credit to her. In fact, a list of credits to her name, including Misfits, of Mary, Ruined, and she's also worked with renowned stars like Adrian Lester, Lucian Masmati, and even Robert Glenister. So we are talking to someone who has blossomed in her writing career, and she started writing in the Royal Court Theatre, the Young Writers Program. We're going to be talking to her a little bit, probably about her short film as well, Spirit Children, starring Pippa Bennett Warner and Jenny Jules. There's so much to talk about. And I think I'm going a bit ahead of myself, not introducing her, not bringing her in. But before I do that, let me just give you a little insight into the book we're talking about today. It's called In Tremendous Heat. Now, this Singaporean based British Nigerian writer has captured the lives of three Nigerian women living in Singapore. Inspired by her love for Singapore's scorching weather and her personal experiences over a decade in that country, she's weaved a really interesting narrative, and she's filled it with cultural references and real life inspiration. It's great to have you here with us, Kehinde. Welcome to One on One.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Lovely intro.
I'm going to take that line one more time. It's great to have you with us, Kehinde.
Thank you
Welcome to
very
the
much.
On Air Book Club.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, then. In Tremendous Heat, I have the book right here. Oh, goodness me. An amazing read. Some great reviews at the back here as well. A friend of the On Air Book Club, Lola Akinwade Akastrom. We've had her on the On Air Book Club as well. She also wrote something at the back of the book here. She says
Yeah.
it's a rich celebration of the nuanced complexities of Black womanhood and friendship. Amazing, amazing, amazing.
Thank
So
you.
I'm honestly a little in awe of how you put this together, because you made it look easy. Now you need to tell us, give us a little basic plot line so that the viewers have a basic idea of what the story is all about.
Okay, it follows three Nigerian women: Dara, who is a lawyer, Amaka, who's a banker, and Lilian, who is a pianist that has now moved to Singapore as a homemaker. And the three of them are living in Singapore when a Nigerian guy, Lani, moves to Singapore and begins to kind of create a lot of chaos inadvertently sometimes in each of their lives. So Dara, for example, he's also a lawyer that's hired in her firm, so they become rivals. So we kind of follow what it's like in the corporate world. Someone who's very ambitious, who her work means everything to her, to now be at this juncture where it feels like she's going to lose what she's been working towards for years, which is partnership. So we kind of see the dynamics of these two Black people in this firm. And then we've got Amaka, who is Dara's best friend, who begins a relationship, like a secret relationship with Lani. And then we have Lilian, who whose parents passed away when she was very young. And Lani is actually the spitting image of her father. So he looks very similar to her father, and that brings up a lot of difficult emotions. And then through the course of the book, the three of them become friends. And you also meet a lot of the other characters from the Nigerian and African American community, their families, their children, their marriages, their friendships, their holidays. So, it's a light contemporary read, but it does deal with some important issues.
So the title does, there's a fine line on what you could mean by heat. In such tremendous heat, I'm using air quotes here, because we do understand after reading your profile that, of course, Singapore is a really warm place to be. But then I feel like there are some undertones there with the title you used when you were picking the title. What was going through your mind?
Okay, well, I agree. Yeah, there are definitely different layers. So you've got the physical heat, the climate. You've got heat in terms of just intensity, like each character is going through like quite an intense time. And then you've got heat in terms of passion. So there's definitely different like layers to it. I actually did not choose this title. I had a working title, for the 7 years I was on and off, I was writing this book. And then when it came time, when I signed a publishing deal, I had two publishers, one in America and one in the UK. We decided to change the title because the original title had certain connotations in America that were not very positive, which I wasn't aware of.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. And you're not going to let us in on what that title was?
No, I'm not going to.
Okay.
But it just,
right,
because you never know. Who knows? I might use it for a short story or something in the future.
Maybe.
We just decided that it didn't tie in with what I was trying to convey with the book, which was really hard for me to let go because that was my, I loved that title. So it took us about 3 or 4 months to brainstorm as a team a title. And we actually have two titles. We have a different title in the States and we have this title.
Interesting. So this one is based just UK and everywhere else apart from the States?
Exactly, everywhere else. Yeah, same cover, same book cover. So people may have noticed the same book cover, but different titles.
Beautiful cover, by the way. Let me just show people what we're talking about here. The cover is really nice. It's very striking. Speaking of striking, the setting of the book is Singapore. Not too many people have, put together content or let's say works, pieces of art from Singapore being African. I'm talking about being African now. Did you see any risk in making this the setting for your novel?
No. I didn't. I knew that a lot of people were becoming more and more interested in life in Asia in general. I could see that in in media. And then, when I first moved to Singapore, Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan had just come out. I loved that book. And as I was writing this book, he was then publishing the trilogy because there are 3 books, and I felt like there were only positive connotations with Singapore, overall. But ultimately, I set the story there because I was living there. I was meeting a lot of different Black women. I was very intrigued by all of us, to be honest, and how different we were, and how some women were friends, but may not have been friends back in their home. But like in this sort of, fresh new environment on foreign soil, you kind of make connections with people very different from you, and that can be really beautiful. So I didn't really see any drawback.
I have to ask about the journey in Singapore. Why were you actually in Singapore? So for those that don't understand your background, was it a plan for you to stay there for so long? Did you ever think?
No, it definitely wasn't. No, I mean, it was definitely personal circumstances that took me there. But there's a saying about Singapore, like you go there for, people think they're going to stay for a year or two, and 2 years becomes 4 years, becomes 6 years, it is definitely a country that is very easy to live in. It's very safe and peaceful and calm, and it's really easy for people to come and work or raise families and find themselves there many years later.
So I feel like you've stylishly skirted around not telling us exactly the reason why you were in Singapore. did you grow up there, or was
No,
it
I know. I grew up.
something to
I
do
was
with
born in London.
education? Or okay,
I
go
was
ahead.
born in London. But I moved back to Nigeria almost immediately after, and then I
Okay,
moved to the UK
fantastic.
when I was 14.
Okay. So, Singapore is a beautiful place. We've seen pictures. We know what it looks like. But the feeling of being an African in a place like that, did you? So a lot of people talk about the issue of racism and being African in a place where there are very few Africans. Did you ever feel any pressure to leave at any point in time? Talk to us about Singapore.
No, I think Asia is a huge, it's a vast continent. Every country is going to have its different experiences, but for the most part in Singapore, they see you as an expat, which means that you're a foreigner who's come to work. You're just like every other foreigner who's come to work. Singaporeans are quite, polite people, formal people. I haven't experienced any overt racism just getting along with my day-to-day life. Like I say, it's a really peaceful country, and Singaporeans are Chinese, Malay, and Indian, so they have racial variety as well in the country, and it's very important to them that there is, they use this term called racial harmony. It's something that's really important to them, which is not to say that you're not going to have negative experiences, and it's probably much harder for children, Black children, just because when you really feel very, much in the minority compared to like England or America. But at the same time, the pro of that is that there isn't the same racial baggage that you would get in the UK. There aren't negative connotations that are being passed down generation after generation about Black people or African people. You're seen as an expat who's come to work. There's a lot of curiosity, but if anything, there's really like maybe a lack of knowledge and a curiosity, but there isn't a lot of negativity like projected onto you for the most part.
Okay, so now let's talk about the firm itself. There is a point here where it talks about the break of a partnership at her firm, and now this is all based in Singapore. So, in terms of business sense, the themes of business and understanding the differences between doing business in Nigeria or doing business in the UK or doing business in Singapore. Did you have to do some sort of research to get that right?
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of research in this book, not just for the law firm. A lot of my friends and family are lawyers, but also because one of the characters is a banker. So I did a lot of research for that. She's a credit risk officer. Another character is a pianist. So I did a lot of research on, about like music schools in America and what her career would have been like. Specifically for the law firm, it's a British law firm. So Singapore, like Nigeria, is an ex-colony. They got their independence around the same time as us, give or take a year. So there's, a sort of, paralleled history there. And so they follow English law. So you do find a lot of lawyers in Singapore who practice English law. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I have to do research of international laws that are relevant to but for the banker character, she has come from Lagos to Singapore.
Okay, fantastic.
So she talked a bit about that.
Sure. We're very touchy especially in Nigeria, about issues like divorce, culturally speaking. And one of your characters has the sort of situation that could be triggering in terms of the area of divorce. But you've put it together in such a way that there is a flow. And I'm basically talking about the research you've done to make sure that particular angle of the story came out right. You wrote this and you've published it in different countries around the world. Did you have any doubts that particular theme of the book would resonate with Nigerian readers?
Did I doubt that it may not resonate?
Yes.
When I was writing the book, I don't think about how people are going to respond. It's a story. And you have to be true to the story. You also have to be true to life and reality. Like how people in Nigeria are going to respond could be different to how people in, 10 other countries are going to respond. So you can't pander to a particular group of people. And even within Nigeria, people are going to have different views. We just assume that there's going to be, one consensual viewpoint or opinion. I didn't have to do any research as such. The characters don't have any children. I looked at the law in Singapore, if they were divorcing in Singapore, but really that's not a big part of her story. The part of her story is the breakdown of the marriage, the sadness of that. She's trying to have children. I did talk to friends that have gone through something similar. But I don't, when you're writing fiction, I don't think you should be unduly concerned with whether or not, things people are going to dislike what you're, it's life, like
Okay, okay.
so.
I, it's hard to be on the okay. So we're on the receiving end of the story, and we're the ones being drawn in, being sucked in by these controversial realities. And you've done that by giving each character its own development arc, so to speak. So, which was the most difficult to develop? So we have Dara, we have Lilian, we have who's the third lady?
Yeah.
Dara, Lilian, and please remind me.
Amaka.
Amaka. So, which of the characters was hardest to develop, and why do you think it was so?
Um, I don't think any of them were difficult for me to develop, but maybe when it came to the final rounds of editing, where I'm getting feedback from my editors, I think Lilian, the pianist, the one who goes through the divorce, was the one that they needed maybe more clarity that I had to I had to go back to and connect the dots a little bit, because a lot of her journey is very internal. She's quite an emotional character. She's a very soft, gentle person, but she's going through a lot emotionally. So that means that, like, plot wise, things may not be moving along as quickly as everyone else. If a character is sitting there sort of processing the impact of something, and another character, things are moving and it's a page turner, then it's a bit imbalanced. So she was the one that I had to do a bit more work on, but I wouldn't say any of them were difficult in terms of the arc. I knew who the characters were, pretty early on, so I understood them really clearly.
Yeah. So the major themes: identity, resilience, finding a place to belonging. Those are the things that popped out at me almost immediately. But approaching those themes when you're writing, is there a special style to it? Is there a particular space you need to be when you decide to write in that direction?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a lot of questions specifically in Nigeria about theme and messaging. It's very, very specific to Nigeria. I don't write based on themes. I don't sit around and go, oh, I think I want to explore a story about, like, fill in blank. And I think maybe there is an assumption that you do that as a writer. I certainly don't. I have a story. The story has strong characters. It's compelling. There's something about the story I want to explore. There's something about the characters I find intriguing. I'm spending a lot of time with them in my head as I'm writing for months, for years. Like, there has to be something unique about them. And then as you develop them, you fill out their biography, you figure out how they're going to react and respond to things around them, as well as to what's driving them. Interesting connections start to be made. But I never sat down and thought I want to explore identity. I actually think some of the stronger themes for me, but for every reader, it's going to impact you differently, right? It's going to jump at you differently. For me, it's friendship, it's family, it's their relationship with their parents, it's history, it's the baggage that they carry. And then I'm thinking, how do I write something engaging that people want to read and you don't want to put down, that you can get lost into? It's a little bit of escapism, but it is authentic to real life.
I like the term of escapism. Now, for those that are just tuning in, we're speaking with Kehinde Fadipe, the author of In Such Tremendous Heat. She's a British Nigerian, and it's her debut novel. I'm wondering now if this is going to be part of a series, or is this just a one-off? Talk to us, Kehinde.
It's a one-off. I'm working on my second book now, but it has been optioned for TV, so we will be adapting it for TV. And, we'll see how that goes.
Is it a production house you're working with, or?
Yes, yeah, based in the States. It's
okay.
A TV company.
Fantastic. I know you're trying your best not to let the cat out of the bag yet. And
no, I can talk about it. No, I can talk about it. Yeah,
okay,
I think
go ahead.
Let out the bag already.
Go ahead. Which production house are we talking?
It's called 1,000 Voices.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's been optioned with them through Universal Studios, but it's very early days. We haven't started working on the script yet. It's really early days. Yeah.
Fantastic. How does that feel, though? How does it feel? A production house is willing to work on your book and put it together for TV.
It feels good. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a long road. Some books get optioned and they don't get made. So it is a long process, but it feels great. I like writing for the screen, and I think that these characters would work really well for the screen. Also, they're great secondary characters, if I may say so myself, that I think I would love the opportunity to kind of delve into a little bit more. Yeah, exactly.
Because writing for TV is a completely different ball game. It's a lot of books that have turned to TV shows have had to change a lot of things. Do you feel very possessive over your characters and how you've put them together initially? So, for instance, now if a producer says, we can't call her Amaka, we have to change her name. What would you say to something like that?
I think I do feel a little possessive over the characters, not necessarily the story. Like I'm happy to put the characters in lots of situations that are not in the book, or a producer can suggest. But I would probably be a little baffled if the producer wanted to change the names, because I'm not sure how like unorthodox that is, because that's the name of the character in the book. But I wonder, that might happen, I guess, if you America maybe.
Yeah, Americans can be
know.
interesting when they're doing their production work. They can be, which takes me now to your routine. There's some authors we've spoken with that have to go to a special place. They have to lock themselves in their room. They like to go to the side of a hill. They like to write with a typewriter, with a laptop. Is there anything specific you do as an author to make sure you can get the next chapter down?
Okay, well, one thing, it's not so much where I write, but one thing I do that helps to move it along and to kind of keep me motivated and to keep it going is I like to stop writing in the middle of a sentence, in the middle of a paragraph, or at least if I finish a chapter, start the new chapter and then stop. Because I find that the hardest thing is to look at a blank page, or to have to start a section. It's sort of like trying to get your engine going again. I can't remember where I read this tip, but it's something that's helped me for years. So no matter how well it's going, I will make sure I stop mid-sentence, mid-paragraph, mid-chapter, so that the next day when you sit down, you've already done the hard work creatively, and then you can just keep going. So that's something I find that helps.
So if you have, I hate using the term writer's block, but it is a thing. If you ever find yourself in a position where you are stuck, you just stop writing at that point. How long does it take for you to get back into it? Is it an hour? Is it a day?
Okay, so I think there's two answers. I mean, writer's block is actually very rare. I think what we call a writer's block isn't actually a writer's block. So writer's block is when you sit down and you try to write and nothing comes out. That is actually really rare. I think most writers, we struggle to just sit down. It's the sitting down to write. I want to write, but I can't write. I want to write, but I'm bored. I want to write, but I'm distracted or I'm stressed. Actually, once you sit down, usually something comes out. It's just whether you like what came out or you wrote enough. A writer's block is when you physically cannot write. So if I'm in a situation where I'm trying to write and it's not flowing, then it's get up and maybe write by hand, or just stop and write the next day. I think it's a misconception for me, at least, that you need to write every day. I certainly don't write every day. And I think it depends what draft you're on. The first draft is the hardest because you're just trying to get your ideas down and you need to just get from start to finish and not go backwards and start editing. Just keep going and not judge what you've put on the page. Later on, when you're redrafting, is really fun. That's where you can you can, you're a bit more chill because you've already done the hard work of doing that, laying that first foundation.
So that's the thing then. You go back into the chapter, you're already writing and start editing things along the way. That actually happens. I thought it was just like a stream of words and then you just put it all there out on paper.
I mean, I don't know with other writers, but I do know that certainly it's very tempting to go back and change things. And it's important for the first draft to keep going. So I will go, if an idea comes with something I've already written, I will go into the margins and just make a comment.
Okay.
To remind myself to go.
Instead of editing it at that point, because it'll probably delay you, give you issues with your timeline. Speaking of timelines, what was the timeline for this? The entire timeline from start to finish?
It was about 7 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have a special connection with these characters. That's a 7-year relationship.
I do, yeah.
Which is longer than some marriages, if you ask me.
Very true. I do,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so this is where we ask for advice for aspiring writers. There are some people who have given up and probably just need a word, a boost from someone like you who spent 7 years putting a piece together, to inspire them. What would you say?
Well, I always say to try and find or create a writing group. So try and find other writers and come together once a month and read each other's work. Because that was what changed everything for me. I found a great writers group in Singapore. And then and because everyone was writing different genres, I was able to start reading different genres, and I was getting feedback from people that were not my friends, not my family. They weren't going to pretend if something didn't work, pretend that it worked when it didn't. Um, and also, when they started to do well, I was learning from them about the process, and it became very possible because people I knew were getting publishing deals, and I could learn from them and ask questions. What is it like on the other side? So I would say 100% it's find a writers group. In terms of the actual writing, I've had a few people ask me, like, maybe they're working on something for ages, because I wrote a book before this. I would say, does it have to be that book? Because you're learning to be a good writer, and so maybe write the opening of 3 books, right? Like,
Wow.
challenge yourself to just write. You don't have to commit to one book. There was a reason why I committed to this book, but I've written lots of other things in those 7 years. So don't feel like it has to be. I've been writing this book for years. It becomes almost like a stone on your back, this book that you've been writing. I would say just go online, find some writing prompts, and just start 3 or 4 different books, because you have to become a stronger writer to then be able to deliver the idea that you have that's so good. Because ideas are, we all have great ideas, but through writing this book, the reason why it took so long was I had to learn how to write.
So this past 1 minute that you just gave us just now, I'm going to cut this as a promo clip, because what you just said now is something extra special. Just, becoming a better writer is more important than getting the book out, the first book out, because in the end, what you're trying to achieve with the first book might not be the first book. It might be the second. It might be the third.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. So let's talk feedback now. What's the feedback been like for the book so far? Feedback abroad, feedback here.
I think it's been pretty good. I read the first few reviews when we were sending advance copies out to reviewers, and then after a while, you get a lot of reviews. So after a while, I stopped. I think it's been good. I think you're going to have lots of different responses depending on what people like to read and what state of mind, what mood you're in when you pick it up, if you're interested in Singapore or not. Some people are more into literary fiction and it may be too light for them. Some people are really into like romance and they may like it because it has that with other added elements. But I don't know. I think it's been overall pretty good. I care more about what I think about it, to be perfectly honest. And I'm very proud of it. Is it a perfect book? No. But I think it ties back to what we were just talking about, like with my second book, the idea I have for my second book, I could not have executed 5-6 years ago. So as whatever people's opinions of this is, I know that this was the best book I could write based on my skill set at the time. And that's really all that matters.
All right. Thank you so much. I have to ask if you have any feedback platforms for your readers, for your fans. Do you have any platforms you use to interact with them? And do you appreciate interacting with them? Do you think it affects your writing? For instance, how you write your next book? Has that affected you at any point in time? Talk to us quickly about that.
I love interacting with people, mainly on Instagram. That's where you can find me. I'm Kehinde_Demilola_Fadipe. Because there's somebody else with my name. I also have started reading manuscripts from other writers and helping and giving feedback. So that is a service that I've just started building because I love reading books in general. And, it's very exciting to help someone along the journey of, crafting their work. And I remember just how much I wanted it. I remember walking through bookshops, visualizing my book and flicking to the back of the books where writers thank their agents, publishers, which is a great place to go if you're trying to the list of people to send your book to. Go to your bookshop and find a book. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm on other platforms, but really Instagram.
Kehinde_ one more time.
Demilola.
Demilola. Okay. And then another underscore?
Underscore, and then my surname, Fadipe.
Okay. Okay, underscore Fadipe. I'm just typing that out so people can see it. It's right there on the screen now. Hopefully, I spelled everything
Share it
properly.
real quick, if that's
Is
okay.
that it? It's right there. I got it right there.
You got it? Okay.
Can you see it on the screen?
I can't.
Oh, okay. All right then. I'm not sure why, but you should be able to see it on the screen right now. Kehinde underscore Demilola underscore Fadipe
Oh yes,
on
I see it.
Instagram.
I see it.
Are you on LinkedIn as well?
I am on LinkedIn. Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay, same name on LinkedIn as well. Okay, then now we've actually pushed past our time limit at this point, but it's been a really insightful, interesting conversation. And the name of the book in focus today is In Tremendous Heat. Okay, so this is a mirror shot of this book now. I just realized showing the camera, it's mirroring the words, but In Tremendous Heat is utterly engrossing, a must read, an absorbingly jeopardy laden tale, according to quotes here on the cover. And it's written by Kehinde Fadipe, our author, our guest on today's edition of the On Air Book Club. Thank you so much for joining us today, Kehinde.
Thank you.
All right, then we will be letting you get back to your writing. We can't wait for your next piece, and we'll be interacting with you online to see if we can maybe take a character role in one of your next books. All right, then, Kehinde, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening. All right, then. Now, if you're just tuning in, you need to go back to the beginning and watch or play this again. The book in focus today is called In Tremendous Heat. And Kehinde Fadipe is one of those writers that is essentially unassuming, but we've all been waiting for this book. We've all been waiting for her first book. And she's been in she's had an amazing introduction to the literary industry, and she has some really interesting quotes and insights on the back of the book as well. If you are someone who likes to go online to get your books, this is one you should search for. Once again, British Nigerian actress and writer who's captured the lives of 3 Nigerian women living in Singapore. It's inspired by her love of Singapore and the amazing scorching weather, but she apparently lived in Singapore for over a decade. So you should pick up a copy of this book as soon as you can. All right, then. For those of you who would like to be a part of the On Air Book Club sometime soon, it's very simple. Just send an email, On Air Book Club. It should be the title of the mail, and email Dynamite Podcast Network at gmail.com. Dynamite Podcast Network at gmail.com. Have a great day, everyone.